Okay, today's lesson is all about dividing polynomials. Okay, so this lesson can be a little bit tricky, so super important that you're paying attention and taking notes. Okay, I'm going to go through the first 5 with you, and then I'm going to help you set up the ones on the back. You're going to complete them on your own, and I'm going to upload an answer key so you can see how they were solved and what their answers look like. Okay, so the first step we're going to take is to set the denominator equal to 0 and solve. And we're going to place it in this corner box. I'm highlighting this in red, okay? So this is the corner box. Now, what we can do is set this denominator equal to 0 and solve, but I know that when I set this equal to 0, I'm just going to get -3, right? So what I can do that makes this a little bit easier is just know that I am taking the opposite sign of whatever is in the denominator. So I see x plus 3. I know that if I were to solve this, my answer would be x equals -3. So all we're going to do is we're going to take that number in the denominator that I boxed there, and we're just going to write the opposite number in this little box, in our corner box, okay? So we had a +3, and now we're writing a -3, okay? So that is our first step every single time. And as we go through these, we're going to set things up just like they were in this problem, just maybe not with the arrows. Okay, because I think the arrows are going to get a little confusing. But I just wanted to show you on the first one. So that's step 1. So check, we've done step 1. Now we're going to set up step 2. A word coefficient. We're going to use coefficients and enter zeros if we need. So what a coefficient is it's the number before a variable. For example, if we have 4x, this is my coefficient. This is my variable. Okay, so a coefficient is the number that comes before a variable. So remember, as we're looking at example 1, okay, the first thing, we have 3 terms here. So what I did was I drew 3 lines. Okay, now we are going to take each term and write the coefficient down. So for the first term, I have x squared. And I know that anytime I have a variable, just a 1 is in front of it, right? If there isn't a number, I know that 1 is in front. Okay? So I'm going to put a 1 here, right? Because the coefficient of x squared is 1. And then the next term I see is 4x. So I'm going to put a +4. Okay? And now this last term is just a 3. There's no variable, but that's okay. We're still going to just put a 3 here. Okay, so now that I've put the numbers on top, I've wrote my coefficients. So that's step 2. So I've completed step 2. So now I'm on step 3. And my step 3, you could see by my arrow here, is to bring down my first term. So whatever term is in that first line is coming straight down. Nothing is happening. Okay? So that's step 3. Step 4 is always to multiply the number at the bottom by the number in the corner. Okay, so this is your number in your corner. So what we are going to multiply here is -3 times 1. Okay, and whatever I get, so let's say -3 times 1 is -3. So whatever I get comes up into this middle section. Okay, so that would be step 4, because I multiplied and I brought it to the middle section. And then step 5 is to add here. Okay, so I have 4 minus 3. We're not adding here, but we're just combining like terms, and I know 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, so I've done that. I've completed my add. Now, I'm just going to complete the steps. So, I've done the first step, right? I brought down my 1, and I multiplied. So -3 times 1 is -3. Then I added. 4 minus 3 is 1. Then I go back to my multiplication. So it's -3 times 1. And -3 times 1 is -3. And 3 minus 3 is 0. Okay? So now that we've gotten our answers at the bottom of that line there, we need to write it into a polynomial, okay? We need to make something that looks like an expression. So what we're going to do is, in this example, the biggest exponent I saw was 2. So when I'm rating my polynomial as my answer, I want to start with 1 less than that, okay? So 1 less than 2 is just 1. So I know that my first term here, okay, is just going to be 1x. Because technically, yes, there is a little 1 there, but I don't write that, okay? Then the next term I would have is just a plus 1 with a remainder of 0. Okay? So I know that looks confusing, but we're going to do a few more to help clear that up. Okay? So the first thing I am doing is I am setting every problem up. Okay? So I know that I need my backwards L. I can count 3 terms here. Okay? So that means I'm having 3 lines with a big line underneath. Now that's how I want you to set every single problem up. Every time we're doing this, that's how it needs to be set up. Okay? So my first step is then to take my number in my denominator and flip it. So I had a 1, so now in my little box, I'm going to put a -1. Okay? Step 2 is then to list my coefficients. So I'm looking at the numerator, right? Technically, there's a 1 in front of that x squared. So my first coefficient is 1, my second is 3, and my third is -6. Okay? So that's how we're going to complete that. Then, always, 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 my first number just comes straight down, right? So I have a 1 down here. Then I need to multiply. So -1 times 1 gives me a -1, and I bring it up here. All right? Then I do the addition here, or subtraction, whatever it may be. But 3 minus 1 gives me a 2. Okay? And then I'm multiplying -1 times 2, which gives me a -2. Okay? And then I come down here and I do -6 times -2. -6 minus 2, which gives me a -8. Okay? And here, when I'm done, I can't go anymore because I have no more terms. I need to write my expression. Okay? And if we look back at this example, my biggest exponent was a 2. So I know that my expression just needs to start with an x, because the next term that comes after x squared is just x by itself, okay? So I have a 1 here, so I have 1x. Then I know the term that comes after an x is just a number. So in this case, it's plus 2. Now here, we can't go any farther. This last number is always your remainder, okay? So you have a remainder of -8. And this would be your answer. So x plus 2 with a remainder of -8. Okay? Then we're going to move on to letter B. Now, this one's super, super important. Okay? So for a second, I want you to act like you don't see this hint here. Okay? I'm going to erase it, and then I'm going to scratch it out, and then I'll unerase it later on. Okay? So what I want you to look at is this top part here. Okay? We see that we start with an x cubed, or x to the third, and then my next number is just a constant. Okay? So when we're writing our spaces down, I need to add in placeholders. I just can't have 2 terms here because our first term starts with a 3. So I need to list in some placeholders. Okay? And how I can do that is, technically what this part of this equation is saying, this numerator, is I have x cubed. Now, I am missing an x squared term, so I need to put a placeholder in. And what I mean by a placeholder is you're going to put in a 0x squared, okay? So then my next term would just be x, and as you can see, I'm missing that also. So I need to add in a placeholder for that also. So I would just then have plus 0x minus 8. Okay? These placeholders are super, 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 super important. Okay? We can never list something that has missing terms. So in this top numerator here, we have missing terms. So we need to make sure we are doing this. We are putting in placeholders. Okay? That's super important. So as you can see here, this was our answer before. That's very similar to what I did above. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at this and set our equation up, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my little backwards L. And here, now I have 4 terms, so I need 4 lines, okay? With a big line underneath. Okay? And first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at my denominator. I'm taking the number and I'm flipping the sign. So I see a -2, so I know that I need to have a +2. Okay? And now this is where my placeholders come in. So I'm looking at all of the coefficients, right? So I know that if I have an x, just an x term, there's always a 1 in front. So a 1 is going here. Okay? Then, now is where my placeholders are coming into place. This is my placeholder. So my next term is a 0. My term after that is just a 0 because those are placeholders. When we have terms missing, you need to have a placeholder be put into place, okay? And then my last term would just be a -8, okay? And now we're gonna do the same thing, but nothing's changing just because we put placeholders in. We're gonna do the same type of operation. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm bringing my first term down, and in this case, my first term was a 1, okay? Then I need to multiply 2 times 1, right? 2 times 1, and that's going to be put here. So 2 times 1 is 2, okay? And then I'm adding 0 plus 2, which gives me 2, okay? Then I need to multiply again. 2 times 2, which gives me 4, so that goes here. Now, if you notice, I am only multiplying the numbers that are at the bottom. Okay, you're never multiplying numbers in the middle section, only at the bottom, okay? So then I need to add again. 0 plus 4 is 4, okay? And then I need to multiply 2 times 4, which gives me 8, okay? And -8 plus 8 is just 0, okay? Now, this is where things change from the few that we just did. My biggest exponent that I see in my original problem, I'm going to circle it 3 times, is 3, okay? So I know that I need to do 1 less than 3. I'm starting with the exponent that is 1 less than 3. And I know that the exponent that is 1 less than 3 is x squared. So that's what I'm going to start with. So I have 1x squared. The term that comes after x squared is just x. So I'll have 2x, and then my last term would just be a 4. And in this case, I have a remainder of 0, okay? And when we have a remainder of 0, we don't really like to write it because technically there is no remainder, so it's not needed. So this would be your answer, okay? All right, let's do the next 2. All right, we're looking here. Now I'm looking up at my numerator, okay? And I see that I have 3, 2, 1, 0. So I am not missing any terms here. So I can go ahead and draw my backwards L, and I notice that I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 terms. So I'm going to put 4 lines and then a line underneath. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to look at my bottom my bottom denominator. I see a +2, so I'm going to put in a -2. Because I'm doing the opposite, okay? And then I'm just going to go ahead and write my coefficients. So I know that when I have a term that's just x, the coefficient is always 1. So a 1 is going to be put into place here, okay? Then a 2, because that's my next. Then a 5, and then a -2, okay? So now that I'm set up, we can go ahead and just continue on. So first step, bring down that 1, okay? Then I multiply -2 times 1 gives me -2. That's always going in the middle, okay? So whatever answer you get from your multiplication always goes in the middle column, the middle section, okay? Then I come down. 2 minus 2 is 0. Then I multiply. -2 times 0 just gives me 0, okay? Then I have 5 plus 0 gives me 5. Then I have -2 times 5, which gives me a -10. And then I have -2 minus 10, which gives me a -12. Okay? So we realize here that this problem, the numerator starts with an x cubed. So I know that I need to drop down 1. So my beginning is going to be 1x squared, okay? Then what I have is a 0, so a 0x plus 5 with a remainder of -12, okay? Now, this is fine to write like this, okay? But what I really want you to do is that if you ever have a 0x or a 0x squared or any term is 0, we don't write it, okay? So what would be left is just x squared plus 5 with a remainder of negative 12, okay? Now, it is okay to initially write it like this so you don't confuse yourself, okay? I want you to write it like this first, okay? And then once you see that it's a 0x, we can cancel it out and just write what's left, okay? All right, last one. Let's do this one together, and then you're going to work on some on your own, okay? So I am looking at my numerator. X to the 4th, x to the 3rd, x to the 1. Immediately, you know you are missing something. You know that you're missing the x squared term. So what we're going to do is we're going to write it down with an x squared term. So then I'm going to put an arrow like this, and we're going to write it down with a placeholder. Okay, so I have 2x to the 4th plus 5x cubed minus 2. Oh, see, look what I did. Now I need a placeholder here, right? Because I'm missing my x squared term. So I'm going to put plus 0x squared minus 2x plus 6 all over x minus 2. Okay? And what's really important is that we're putting this term here, this placeholder term, in the right place, right? We want our exponents to go from greatest to least. So we need to put a placeholder in there. Okay? And in this case, it is in the right place. Okay? So now from here, we can go ahead and set our problem up. And I know that I'm going to count my terms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know that I need 5 lines up here. Okay? Next step is to look at my bottom, and I see a negative 2. So I know that I need a positive 2 because I'm flipping the sign. I'm doing the opposite. Okay? And then from there on out, from that step, you are going to go ahead and write all of your coefficients on those lines. So I have a 2, a 5, a 0, that's important, that's a placeholder, negative 2, and 6. Okay? So you're going to drop this 2 down, and then we multiply. So 2 times 2 gives me 4. Okay? And then we add. 5 plus 4 is 9. Okay? And then we multiply again. 2 times 9, which gives me 18. And then 0 plus 18 is 18. And then we multiply. 2 times 18, which gives me 36. Okay? And here we have negative 2 plus 36, which gives me a 34. Okay? And then I multiply 2 times 34, which gives me 68. And then I just add these two up, which ends up being 74. Okay? Now, important, my example starts with an exponent of 4. So I know that I need to drop it down 1, right? So x to the 4th, the one that comes under that is x to the 3rd. So that's how I'm starting my answer. So I have 2x to the 3rd plus 9x squared plus 18x with my last number being a constant, which is just 34, with a remainder of 74. Okay? So that's how we complete problems like that. All right? Okay, so from here, you're going to go on to the next page, and you are going to complete these 6 problems on your own, okay? I'm going to tell you these 2, 5 and 6, they are missing a term, okay? They're missing a term right here, and they're missing a term right here. So make sure you're setting them up, okay? So how we mean by setting them up, I'm going to set the first one up for you. So remember, you're just going to draw backwards, L. In this case, you have 4 terms. Nothing's missing here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and your long line, okay? And then setting up would be, in this case, would be negative 2, 1, 4, 5, 2, okay? So make sure we're setting those up. 5 and 6 have missing terms, so you need to make sure you're adding in a placeholder, okay? And a placeholder equals 0, right? So you're going to put a 0 on a line if it's missing something, okay? All right, so go ahead and complete those. I am going to upload an answer sheet to Google Classroom, so when you're done, you can go ahead and look those over. All right, if you have any questions, let me know or come after school.